Let's go to our Celtics crew. Start it off with this. What's going on in Boston right now?
Injuries, as per usual. We've had one game with everybody healthy, and we got dismantled by the Raptors. And of course, that's the one game I did not watch because I had something else to do. So,
No, again, we don't say that. We watch every game.
no, I'm being honest. I'm not going to lie to our viewers, our loyal listeners, aka our two loyal listeners. But, um, hey, first game against the Knicks, I called Amir. What, fourth quarter? I called you, and we talked the rest of the game. I refused to buy too much into that game only because I didn't want to get too high emotionally or too low. So you can ask Amir. I was very calm on the phone watching that game.
He was. He
I,
was.
I and I told Amir, I said,
I was more nervous than he was.
yeah. And I told Amir after the game, I said, it sucks because I think that might be our best game all year. Win or lose, like the way that game was going, there was a lot of fun stuff to see, like Jalen going on for 46, career high. Wanted to see him get 50. He missed that dunk. Damn it.
Grant Williams hitting nice corner clutch.
Yeah. Grant was looking good.
Evan Fournier revenge game. Can we talk
please
about
shut
that?
up. Now, Evan, it's funny. I really liked Evan whenever he's in Boston, but for what he signed with New York, I was perfectly comfortable just letting him go for it.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a little bit too much, but New York had the money and went for it. Kemba Walker, I told Amir this. I love Kemba Walker still.
Weirdly.
Yeah, weirdly, but nice to see him doing decent there. He's only averaging like 10.5 points per game. It's not, I don't think we'll ever see Charlotte Kemba again, which sucks, but Knicks game was fun. Raptor game I didn't watch. Last night versus Houston was fun because I got to see Jalen Green. Robert Williams was a bright spot all week, first week. Al Horford looks comfortable. He looks rejuvenated. A lot of that could do with Oklahoma City being like, we're just going to bench you. So he got like a full like 8 months to just rest his body. And that's big for a guy. He's 34. Like, he's old.
That's actually why I wasn't so high on Al Horford, because I was like, when a guy misses an entire year at that age, it's tough to come back and play at that level. And you were high on him from the beginning. I got to give you credit. You were the guy that was saying you think Al Horford still has that ability to be that guy. I just didn't think it was there with him missing so much time.
Yeah. The only reason I say that is because his game just feels like it ages well. You know what I mean? He just feels like it's that old man game that can kind of age decently. And it has. I mean, what shocks me is he was getting out and running last night against Houston, like running the court. And it was when Sengun was out there, and he was outrunning Alperen Sengun up and down the court. And I was like, damn, like, that's kind of bad sign. That's the red flags I was talking about him. But all in all, I think it was good. A lot of Celtics fans are mad at Ime's rotations, but I'm going to go ahead and bring up the fact that we haven't had a consistent roster yet for him. Every single game we've had new guys. We've had a different starting five for 3 games out of our first 4. Hard to kind of build up something. And, Ime's got to take time. But like I told you with coaches, you can't jump to a conclusion right away. Like, I messed around with Amir and texted him after the first game. I was like, Ime sucks. But it's like, you got to wait like 40, 50 games before you can give like a solid formulated opinion on how good a coach is or not, because you can't just throw out 5-game sample sizes and be like, he's ass. Because if I want to pick a 5-game sample size out of Luke Walton's coaching tenure, I could pick their 5-game win streak last year and say, hey, Amir, check this out. They won 5 games. So you have to see, realistically speaking, I'd like to see a full season before I go out and say if he's good or bad. But I know people are too reactionary to wait that long. They want results now, and they want to see impact right away. And that's not going to happen. It's not realistic. But all in all, Celtics first week, I'll give them a solid B grade.
I like that grade. I do want to go back to the Ime Udoka point you brought up. A lot of Celtics fans I've noticed on, one, our Celtics group chat that we are both in, and 2, just from the Celtics fans that I follow and Celtics Twitter that I follow, a lot of overreactions about Ime Udoka. And I get it. NBA Twitter overreacts a lot. We'll get into those Kings overreactions. We've seen our Lakers overreactions. People are kind of going all over the place with everything that's going on, right?
Yep.
But I will say the whole Ime Udoka thing needs to stop, man. Like, people are just too much getting on him over a few games, which, let's be honest, you guys are what? A 1 basket away from being 2-1 right now. Like, we're not talking about a team that's 0-3 that has not looked good and has gotten blown out. We're talking about a team that's 1-2. And you guys have kind of tried to figure out the reins of what type of coach Udoka is. Now, the only thing I will say about Ime is he's gonna need a lot of time to figure out what the core should look like. You guys have a different group. You guys brought in Dennis Schroeder, and you guys brought in Al Horford. You bring in different guys, and you're talking about a team that doesn't have the chemistry that they used to have. So when you have different guys as a team, and like Ime said, he said I averaged 8 points per game in my career. Jason Tatum averages what 25 points per game. He's still trying to figure out how to handle a star player, how to handle two star players that are not only established, but at the same time, they're still young in the league. So you got to give that
Yeah.
time, got to figure that out. I would say to hold on that.
I will say he did one thing that made me mad. It's one thing, and if I have one thing to complain about, that's fine. He is very big on the players not talking back to the refs. I'm fine with that. I'm more than fine with that. I think that goes on a little bit too much. But here's the issue. When Jason gets obviously hacked, this was against the Raptors. I watched the highlight of it.
Mm-hmm.
He gets obviously hacked, like up here by the elbow. So it's not even like the refs could have barely missed it. It was a bad missed call. Tatum then turns and yells at the refs, right? Doesn't get back on defense. Toronto score on a fast break. Ime pulls him out. Now, it was about time for Tatum to get a break anyways. He was already out there for like 8.5 minutes straight. He pulls him out and benches him the rest of the half. I don't like that, only because I feel like there's a big difference between Jason Tatum complaining to the refs and a guy like Grant Williams or Ernest Cantor complaining to the refs. Like, there's a big difference between like, okay, this is your star. You got to let your star kind of stand up for himself whenever he thinks the refs miss something. I'm big on letting those guys make complaints and stuff. I think Jalen and Jason should have that right. They've earned it. But I think there's a big difference when a bench guy does it. I think your star player should be able to go out there and say, hey, you missed a call on me. You know what I mean?
I see your point, but I disagree in the fact that
I just don't think you should bench Jason ever for no reason. Like, you should not bench your stars if that's the case. Call a timeout, talk to him. Don't bench them.
I disagree because Ime Udoka comes from the Greg Popovich tree, and Pop does not care who he benches. He doesn't care if it's Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Kawhi Leonard. He'll bench you. And now I get it. There's different ways to coach everybody, right? And I'm not saying Pop coached Manu Ginobili the same way he coached Tim Duncan, because no, there were times where he would go in on Tony Parker and just scream at him, and he would never yell at Tim Duncan, not because Tim Duncan had this special star treatment, but because he understood that Tim Duncan's not a guy you can yell at. That's not the way he likes to be coached. That's not the way that's coachable. So one thing I will say is give Ime time. He's figuring it out. But at the same time, I like it. He's benching his star player. He's telling his whole team, if you don't get back on defense, you're sitting your ass next to me. And as a coach myself, and I know I'm not at the NBA level, so I'm not even trying to compare that, but I look at it as he's trying to set the tone for the entire team. It's an all for one for all. It's not a you're the superstar, so you get to do whatever you want. You know what I mean? It's more of like you can literally go and say, hey, you know what? You need to stop doing this. You need to cut this down because I get it. You're getting hacked. Let me do the talking. And a lot of those coaches
I'd agree with that if he started talking, because he doesn't.
You're right, and that's what I was gonna say. A lot of the coaches don't do it. De'Aaron Fox gets hacked game after game. Last night got hacked ridiculously all game. Luke Walton has yet to stand up for him. He does it occasionally, but what I also noticed is I don't think that works anymore. When these players stand up when these coaches stand up, I don't think the refs care anymore. And I think it's at the point where you just got to build that reputation.
We got to legalize it. We got to legalize coaches and refs fighting after the game if they think that somebody missed a call egregious. We got to normalize it.
Well, this is not hockey, unfortunately, Caleb.
I want to see fights. Darn it. I want to see men out there saying, you know what, you missed a call. Here's an uppercut right to your jaw. I want to see fights out there, Amir. I want to see people with heart going out there and standing up for what they believe in.
Well, I don't. So it sucks to be one thing and last thing I wanted to ask you, and I think this is probably the biggest question when it comes to Celtics. Why is it that it's so rare, and maybe I'm wrong on this, and you tell me, I'm an outsider. Why is it that's so rare that Jalen and Jason have great games at the same time? Like, why can't we get them?
I can't answer that for you. I'm just a normal redhead from Southwest Pennsylvania. It honestly feels like, but I get what you're saying, because honestly, I think they have 3 games where they scored 30 plus at the same time, which I get. 30 plus is like a high number to score at the same time, but it definitely feels like they take turns flip-flopping on who has big games. Like they don't do it consistently together. And I think does that does that come down to the redundancy of them? Because I brought this up with the Celtics group chat the other day. Are they redundant? A lot of people said they were redundant, and everybody's like, no, there's no way two superstar wings are redundant. But here's the thing. You mentioned it with new guys coming in and out of that roster, right? You got to look at the constants at a certain point whenever you're like, okay, they're capping out at the conference finals and then they're shitting the bed in the conference finals, right? They did it with like two separate rosters. You have to then look at yourself and say, okay, what are the constants here? Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Those are the constants. You got to look at that and say, hey, what's wrong here at the core that's not being able to reach that next level? And if I had to say, I would say it's more Marcus Smart than those two. But there is some redundancy, I think, between Jaylen and Jason now that they're kind of not holding themselves back, but they're not pushing themselves to the next level. You know what I mean? Like, I'm too young personally to remember it, to think of how it all went down. But I know that Antoine Walker and Paul Pierce were kind of the same thing. Two young stars. Antoine Walker put up 24 points per game. Pierce put up 23. They looked like they were going to take that next level, and they never did. And then they had to ship out Antoine Walker to Dallas. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that they got to do it with these guys, but could it be history repeating itself? Two guys that are kind of not holding themselves back, but they're not able to take that next leap to like true finals contenders. Like you have to start thinking that eventually, right? Like you got to start thinking like, hey, something's holding them back from being able to take that next step.
And we'll see if that's really the case or if they end up figuring it out. This year is going to be a big year, I think, for the Jays and for the Celtics in general. So I am excited to talk a lot of Celtics this year. I think this will be a lot more fun than last year, especially with you guys having a little bit better of a roster. Now, I disagree with you on you thinking that their depth is marginally better. I think it's a little bit better. I don't think it's that much better.
I think it's clearly better than last year, like significantly better.
And we'll see, man. And we'll see it's not really about who's right or wrong, but we'll see if that is the case, because a lot of that's going to depend on if the Celtics are deep enough. Because we saw a perfect example of what we just talked about. When Jaylen and Jason are not playing elite, one of them is playing bad. We saw Celtics Twitter, and Celtics Twitter goes crazy. And I know it's Kings Twitter does all the time after one game. Jaylen played one good game, and everyone's like, yeah, this is our new franchise player. I'm like, okay, let's relax. And I know a lot of that is tongue in cheek, but still, you know what I mean when you see those things of people being like, maybe it is Jaylen. You start hearing those whispers. And then next game, Jaylen has 6 points through like 3.5 quarters. And it's like, he's not playing that same way. So we'll have to see. Like you said, I think a lot of that is we'll have to see with that depth, because when they're both not playing elite, and even if they both are, they have 30 and 30s. That's only 60 points. You got games.
Last night was great, though, because Tatum got his 31. Schroeder put up 18. Grant Williams put up 18. Al Horford put up 16. Like, it was nice to see scoring that was kind of spread out. Like, and we didn't even have Marcus Smart have one of his random ass, like, hot shooting games. Like, it was, you know what I mean? Like, we survived that. And those type of games, I think, are better than seeing blowouts where Jason has 50. As fun as it is to see him get 50, I'd much rather see scoring spread out across 5-6 guys versus one guy putting up a ton and then barely winning. I'd rather see it like that.